Up next on The Reveal.
I hate Brandon so bad I could put a bullet between his eyes and not blink.
Hateful words from a Georgia State Trooper's journal, threatening to harm his own son.
What do you have to say about that?
It was a parent's visitation that he got. He got more than the biological mother originally got for visitation.
Our in-depth investigation takes a look at the new grandparents' rights law in Georgia.
You felt boxed in, and you felt you had only one choice.
And a family forced to flee the state.
I'm very shocked.
And school bus drivers disobeying safety. Their alarming actions caught on tape.
What could happen there?
Crash.
The Reveal begins now with investigators Faith Abube and Brendan Keefe.
Welcome to The Reveal, a show dedicated to life-changing investigations.
How far would you go to protect your family? What if the person trying to take your daughter away is your own father, and the one trying to take your granddaughter away is your own son?
And one of them has a badge and a gun. Tonight, Georgia's new grandparents' rights law and the little girl caught in the middle of a tug of war. This little girl has a lot of people who love her.
So pretty.
Her father, Brandon Roberts,
When I held her the first time, everything changed. I knew I'd do anything to protect her.
and her grandfather, Dale Roberts.
From the day she was born, I promised her I would always be there to love and protect her. This is a dollhouse that I started building for my granddaughter February of last year. I just hope she gets to play with it one day.
We advised him that he could come see her at our house, but we did not feel safe with her going over there by herself anymore.
What happened, baby? Mommy and Daddy will not let you go if you're scared.
Brandon says his father had become obsessed with his daughter and cut off contact. The grandfather responded
That he was going to do everything in his power to ruin us.
and he put that in writing.
He did, in a text.
The pain and hurt you've caused me by keeping my granddaughter away from me, I'm going to do everything within my power to ruin you both. Did you write that?
Oh, yes, sir, I did.
What do you have to say about that?
It was said in anger. I wanted my granddaughter back, and they took basically what I lived for.
I believe he wanted my family to be unstable so he could show the court that we were unstable, so in order for him to get custody.
That rocking chair, I don't know how many hours we spent in that chair together. All I could do is sit there and cry because I didn't know if I'd see her again.
Dale sued his own son under Georgia's new grandparents' rights law. That's how Brandon got a copy of his father's private journal through discovery.
Brandon is a sorry son of a bitch who is an uncaring bitch. He is no longer my son. I hate him so much now. I wish he were dead.
Do you wish your son was dead?
Not really. I was speaking out in anger, and I hated my son. I really hated him for what he'd done.
What does your father do for a living?
He is a Georgia State Trooper.
Trooper Dale Roberts of the Georgia State Patrol wrote something else in his journal about his son.
I hate Brandon so bad I could put a bullet between his eyes and not blink.
The state gave you a gun and trained you how to use it, and here you are writing down, I want to put a bullet in my son's head.
These words were spoken or written in anger. There's been plenty of words written in anger since this situation began.
You don't want to hurt your son.
No, sir, I did not want to hurt my son.
And he told the court that the journal was full of his love for my daughter, when in fact he was writing stuff about killing her father.
Still, a Spalding County judge ruled in favor of the grandfather, ordering Brandon to hand over his daughter to Dale 2 full weeks in the summer, most holidays, and 2 weekends every month.
It was a parent's visitation that he got. He got more than the biological mother originally got for visitation.
A parent can sue their own estranged child to get essentially shared custody of the grandchild.
As a step-parent, even if I were to adopt, he would still have more rights than I would, which is crazy.
You felt boxed in, and you felt you had only one choice.
To move.
To leave the state.
To leave the state.
Stephanie and Brandon packed the kids in the car and drove, leaving Georgia and Dale in their rearview mirror. They crossed the Iowa border and kept driving deep into the rural heartland. Did you pick this place because you knew it would be hard to find?
Yes. Or we figured it would be hard to find.
Where is Mommy and Daddy?
They were hiding out, quite literally in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by Iowa bean and cornfields, no one for miles around. But somehow Trooper Roberts tracked them down.
I hired 2 private investigators.
Sheriff's deputies here in Iowa were asked to serve Brandon with papers for contempt of court. The attorney letter clearly stating that his client was a trooper in the Georgia State Patrol.
I answered the door, and the cop was very aggressive.
He drew his taser on me.
Do you think that had anything to do with the fact that they were told in advance that your father was a Georgia State Patrol trooper?
I believe it was because he called them.
Did you ever mention to the sheriff's office up there that you're a Georgia State Patrol trooper?
Yes, sir.
Why would you mention your job to another law enforcement officer if it doesn't have anything to do with a civil case?
It's just personal preference. It's the way law enforcement people are. We mingle, and I go to a lot of funerals for troopers that's been killed out of state, and we introduce it's just professional courtesy.
And Roberts versus Roberts.
Back in a Georgia courtroom.
So, Judge, we would ask that you enter an order finding him in contempt, ordering that he be incarcerated.
The grandfather showed up, but his son did not.
Shooting somebody in the head, threatening to kill or murder his son and his son's wife in order to get custody. I might have moved to Alaska if it had been me.
Trooper Roberts came with a new piece of evidence.
I took my daughter for my family's safety, and we moved to Iowa because you threatened to kill us like a piece of shit cop you are.
A voicemail left by his son.
The NAACP is going to read what you put in that journal about niggers, and I cannot wait till the day your ass goes downhill for what you've done, racist pig.
He was referencing another line from his father's journal.
When I take the car from him, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to have it professionally cleaned, though. It looks like a bunch of lived in it.
There's a word scribbled out there. Do you know what that word was?
No, sir. Idiots, no.
There appear to be two G's in the middle of the scribble.
I know where you're going, but no, sir.
That's not the N-word.
No, sir, it's not. It could be idiots. I don't know, but it is not that word.
Do you use that word?
No, I do not.
The trooper later admitted to us in writing it was the N-word. He says he scribbled it out so his granddaughter wouldn't see her poppy as a racist.
I'm not perfect, never have been perfect. I'm probably one of the farthest people from ever being perfect. But if I'm perfect in anything, it was being a grandfather to my granddaughter.
Coming up on The Reveal, the grandfather is interrogated by his own police department.
How did you find out where Stephanie and them had moved?
And finally admits how he found out where his son was hiding his granddaughter. Will this abuse of power cost him his job?
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
A state trooper takes his own son to court to win visitation with his granddaughter, but then the son takes the girl out of state after finding out what his father wrote about in his private journal about killing him to win custody. Now the State Patrol is using our investigation to confront the trooper about what he wrote in that journal.
Here's your original stuff.
Trooper Dale Roberts in the hot seat, questioned by Georgia State Patrol Internal Affairs after our investigation.
This is one of the ugliest situations I believe I have ever had to sit down in a room over. I'll be honest with you.
The trooper's son, Brandon Roberts, believed his father had become obsessed with his little girl. Dale won 2 weekends a month visitation with his granddaughter, even after the trooper had written in his journal that he wanted to put a bullet between his son's eyes to get custody. A judge ordered Brandon to turn over his daughter to his estranged father.
They felt they had only one option left, to get in the car and drive, and keep driving. They ended up here, Iowa.
Brandon, his wife Stephanie, and their kids moved to the middle of nowhere to hide from the trooper.
How did you find out where Stephanie and them had moved? Stephanie and Brandon moved.
This is what's going to get me in trouble, probably. But I run Brandon's license number, and that's what I found where he was at in Iowa.
The trooper's cruiser held all the answers. Investigators had pulled his computer and audited his searches through the state's confidential crime information database.
That's the number of times Stephanie and Brandon were run.
16 different times.
Well, I run through Texas to start with. I run through Utah.
Searches through multiple states.
Alabama, I think all the southern states.
Until he found which state we were in.
Kentucky, Florida, and South Carolina, maybe North Carolina. So I guess it does add up that many times.
When we first did an interview, your thought was that your father might have used his job to hunt you down. Now we know that was true.
Correct, yep. Even though he said that he used private investigators, now we know the truth was he used his tools as an or as a Georgia State Trooper to find us.
At the time, you were upset. Is that?
Yeah, I was very, very upset.
I
was devastated because they took my granddaughter away.
Right.
I haven't seen her. I didn't know where they were, when I was ever going to see her again, if I was going to be a big part of her life.
Right.
And I got desperate.
The State Patrol also booked the journal into evidence and asked the trooper about the passages where he fantasized about killing his own son. And this text message he admitted sending his ex-wife, Brandon's mother.
I wish to hell when you had attempted suicide you had succeeded. Next time use a hollow point bullet. Put the gun to your mouth pointed upward and pull the trigger. Before you do that, let me know where you're buried so I can piss on your grave.
I have never threatened Brandon. If I had threatened Brandon or his mama by killing them, even though I said those things in the journal, I would have been locked up. They would have been took out of warrant on me.
There's a word scribbled out there. Do you know what that word was?
No, sir. Idiots. No.
One of the last things is the use of the N-word in the journal.
I did.
There appear to be 2 G's in the middle of the scribble.
I know where you're going, but no, sir.
That's not the N-word.
No, sir, it's not. I am not a racist. I've used the word, yes. And I'm 61 years old. That's why we were brought up. Most of the time we said it didn't mean anything. And it's just, sometimes it slips out. It could be an idiots. I don't know, but it is not that word.
Do you use that word?
No, I do not.
And then the email that you sent to the reporter afterwards.
When he brought that up, I should have stopped. I should have stopped it right there. I should have seen where it was going. Maybe this would be my chance of defending myself. Well, as you know, it backfired.
The trooper told Internal Affairs that the State Patrol command staff had no problem with him using the N-word.
I owned up to it. I didn't have nothing to hide. And as Sergeant Harold said, I say the N-word myself. Captain Dixon said, and nobody that says they don't say it is a liar.
What has happened to your father as a result of all of this?
He was allowed to retire. He lost his job, but they gave him the option to retire.
The State Patrol told us the case was closed with the trooper's retirement, even though the trooper had admitted on camera he had used the secure government database to hunt down his estranged son's family.
If Georgia State Patrol isn't going to hold their own accountable, then they can't hold Georgia citizens accountable.
After we pushed the State Patrol to explain why it was taking no further action, the commissioner referred the case to the GBI.
You were still looking over your shoulder for your now retired Georgia State Patrol trooper father.
Correct, yes.
What's your biggest fear?
What he put in the journal about killing us in order to get custody of my girls.
Now, Faith, the GBI completed its criminal investigation and they've turned it over to the Griffin District Attorney, who tells me he's taking it to the grand jury this month.
So when police officers use these government databases for personal reasons, how often are they getting criminally charged?
Not very often. The GBI has reports over the last 2 years of 53 violations where officers and employees improperly access these computer systems, but in only 3 cases were officers or employees charged. In other cases, they were allowed to retire or they were fired, but some of the punishments have been as little as retraining or the loss of 8 hours pay.
Coming up on The Reveal.
You have children on the bus. You have a huge responsibility.
School employees are tasked with protecting our kids, but video evidence shows that some are putting them in harm's way. You put your child on the bus to get to school safely, but what would you say if you found out the bus driver was disregarding safety just to try to beat the light? Our investigation from Houston, Texas reveals several instances where school bus drivers were blowing through red lights with children on board.
We all know the rules of the road. Green means go, red means stop. Pretty simple, right? But some yellow school bus drivers at Fort Bend ISD simply don't get it. Take a look At intersection after intersection, the stoplight clearly turns red, but the bus rolls right on through. It happens in broad daylight, and it happens in the pre-dawn hours, when it's potentially even more dangerous.
Wow, that's very scary.
We showed parents what red light cameras caught on tape.
It doesn't make me feel safe about him riding the bus. It makes me want to go ahead and drop him off at school and pick him up.
When everybody, every day, always seems to be in a rush.
What could happen there?
Crash.
People like to just go when the light turns green. So for them to run it, that's not safe.
It's devastating because the pedestrians, the other cars, for the children's lives, they're at risk.
We spotted some close calls, like this left turn on a red. The bus driver cuts off a pedestrian trying to cross the street. Or check out this video. 1, 2, 3 buses cross on a changing yellow, and then a fourth blows through the red.
I'm really shocked. I'm very shocked.
Selena Showers has a 7-year-old at Fort Bend ISD.
You have children on the bus. You have a huge responsibility.
Over the past 2 school years, KHOU11 Investigates found a total of 26 tickets issued to Fort Bend school buses, each carrying a $75 fine.
So what happens to all these red light runners? Well, Fort Bend ISD tells us it has disciplined some of these drivers, but it won't say how many or what action was taken. So we don't really know, and neither do you.
And that goes for drivers who got multiple tickets, like this one who made an illegal right turn on red 2 times about a month apart. Or this Fort Bend ISD driver who racked up 2 tickets for whizzing through a red.
Should you have a right to know what happened to them?
Yes, I think we should have a right to know about that. If somebody's driving and not stopping on the light, that means there's people that should not even be driving a bus.
And since that investigation aired, there's been a ton of reaction. Here's our investigator, Jeremy Rogowski, with this follow-up.
The school district did not want to answer our questions on camera, but a spokesperson told us safety is always the #1 priority. For perspective, the district said it has 500 drivers who drove more than 4.5 million miles over the 2 years in question. And while no violation is acceptable, the district says these tickets are not representative of all drivers. For The Reveal, I'm Jeremy Rogowski reporting.
I'm Rebecca Lindstrom. 2 weeks ago, we aired a story on SERVA, shoulder injury related to vaccine administration. It's not the shot itself that causes the injury, but how it's administered. Injuries can take years to heal and be extremely painful. Since then, a viewer wrote to thank us for the story. He went to get his flu shot and started having doubts about the woman's training. Turns out she's still a pharmacy student. He made up an excuse and left. He still got the flu shot, just somewhere else, and writes, "People should speak up and not just let anyone do medical things to them." We also received an email letting us know a woman desperate for help saw our report and finally understood why she was in so much pain. She's now filing a claim with the Vaccine Compensation Fund to help pay for her recovery. While the federal program helps compensate people who've been injured, there is no effort to go back and actually contact or even try to retrain the person who gave the shot. If one of our stories impacts you, we'd like to hear from you. Reach out to us with any story ideas or comments at thereveal@11alive.com.
Next week on The Reveal, a grandmother nearly goes to prison for assisting a voter.
Okay, did she give you any suggestions of who to vote for?
And that's what happened.
A response from Georgia's Secretary of State.
Do you think minority voters in Georgia have legitimate concerns?
Next week on The Reveal.
You've been watching The Reveal, a show fueled by investigations that make an impact.
We'll see you next week on The Reveal.